Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub Chatting with ISO Experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Scott Dawson again, President of Core Business Solutions. Glad you could be here again.
Glad to be here.
All right, so last week we talked about looking into 2024, went through some ideas of that you have when you're talking about annual planning and what you go through. To start with that, my first question for you is, what emerging trends in the market do you think we should focus on or adapt to in the upcoming year?
Yeah, these are the things that keep a CEO up at night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's going on out there? What's changing? How do we need to adapt? What do we need to do new? So everything I just talked about, this process that we follow, stems from at least a year of mulling over and thinking and observing and trying to understand, you know, what's going on that broader scale. So strategy is the feeder system to the planning process.
Okay.
You got to have strategy.
Okay.
Strategy, there are a lot of things you have to think about. One is new technologies. That would be the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean, we're a technology company. Look around the room, right?
Yeah, we work with that a little.
We do. So what's going on in the world of technology that can impact us, affect us, hold us back, help us get farther forward? Boy, the first one that you hear about every single day is AI.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, I jumped right on the AI bandwagon.
I can confirm that, yes.
Yeah, and it's a drumbeat we've already started to beat for almost a year now. To me, of course, there are a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I have mixed opinions about the pluses and minuses of AI in its current state.
Right. Which might be different in March.
It might be different in March. It will be different in March. Yeah. But AI is in its infancy, at least publicly used AI. I mean, machine learning and AI have been around for 15 years or more. Longer than that if you look in universities and other kind of sources. But from a public tools kind of point of view, ChatGPT and what Microsoft is doing, what Google is doing, making it like every man can go and play with AI.
Right.
It's now something accessible to everyone with all its warts, with all of its weaknesses, but it's already accessible. It's pretty darn smart.
Yeah.
It can be really helpful in summarizing information, pulling together information, coming up with new ideas. It's a great brainstorming tool. Give me 10 ways to do this.
Yeah.
You know? So I think every business, whether or not they're in a technology sector or not, could utilize an AI tool and probably should get it on their to-do list to begin learning about this. We've gone so far as to form a team of about 20 of us. There's 18 or 20 of us. We meet once a month. We share what we're all learning, do a little bit of training. Yep. We have a daily chat that we're all chatting in, pretty active group, just to kind of foster exploration in the area of AI. Now we have some parameters, the kind of information you don't share on an AI tool. But we're all trying to learn how best we can use these tools to serve our customers better, to be more efficient, to accomplish more, to offer new levels of quality and service through our organization.
Yeah, and we've had some success at that.
We've had some success.
I know that myself and others have, at least used it for an efficiency and, some other things. It's like, oh, this isn't going to take me a half an hour. I can do it in 10 minutes.
Do it in 10 minutes.
On the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I know AI is part of your prep for this.
It is.
For the podcast. It's just pulling ideas together, pulling information together, getting it organized.
Summarizing things?
It's summarizing things. It's not the end all and it's not perfect. You have to be cautious, of course. You need to be educated. If you're going to dabble, if you're going to get involved, go all the way in and really understand what you're doing, because you don't want to, do something that's going to harm your organization or, disclose privacy information, things like that.
And you were saying you have to be smart. I had it make a mistake where I was asking it about a specific topic we were going to work on, and it answered it, and I said, no, that's wrong. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. That is
Yeah.
wrong. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I wouldn't have known what I was talking about to at least a degree,
Yeah. Yeah, I
it
always
would've totally-
double check information
you have
that
to,
it gives me.
you absolutely have to
So I
fact check
think
it.
that's a thing that is to me as big as, and this is gonna maybe sound a little big, but it's as big as personal computers.
Mm-hmm.
It's as big as the start of the public internet.
Mm-hmm.
These years will be the years when, do you remember life before AI? And our grandkids will say, no, I really don't. I don't know. You must really be old, Grandpa.
Yeah.
You know?
Like we are with smartphones.
Like we are with
what,
smartphones.
You didn't have a party line? What's
yeah.
a party
my
line?
gosh. What
Yeah.
could we,
Yeah.
now how could we live without a smartphone?
I know.
10 years ago, did we even have them?
Yep.
15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So these are, our world is changing fast. This is part of that cycle. We're at the beginning edges of that. So in the next year or two, every business will be impacted. That's my opinion.
Yep.
And I think it's shared by most. So now related to that is the subject of automation. What do I mean by that? There are tools available that weren't available even a couple of years ago where you can automate processes, activities, even manufacturing operations
Mm-hmm.
in ways that you couldn't have done without expensive investments prior to recent years. So as an example, Microsoft has a suite of tools called the Power Platform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's made up of something called Power Apps and Power BI and Power Automate. I think there's one or two others in this suite of new products that is built around AI under the covers, but it allows you to not be a programmer and do things that a programmer would be able to do. So you can build simple software applications. You can query information in ways you never could. This is all done through what's called low code and no code solutions, meaning you don't have to rely so much on a programmer for everything. I'm not saying programmers aren't important, because they are. I think their jobs are going to become more important, especially as they incorporate some of these efficiency tools like this.
Yeah.
But automation is another aspect that a company could look at and really try to get benefit from. A third technology thing that I think about is Internet of Things, or IoT. We have IoT in this very room.
Actually, we absolutely do.
So what is IoT? What is IoT?
Internet of Things.
Yeah. And what does it mean? What does it mean that something's
It's all the little things that connect to the internet that can be controlled and accessed, that you don't even see that connection anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example, we have lights.
Yeah.
In this room and another room that we can control from our network.
Yep. From my app, from my phone, from an
your
app.
phone,
Yep.
From an iPad.
Yep.
And those lights are wirelessly connected to a network. That network is or could be connected to the internet.
Yep.
Internet of Things. It raises all kinds of interesting possibilities to be able to operate equipment and other types of things through wireless technologies.
Yep.
Turn your lights on and off at home.
Yep.
For example.
Well, and there's a thing with that called if this, then that. So you can set up a setup within those IoT devices. If this happens, then that should happen.
Okay.
So you also have a whole pathway of that. Like, let's say you want a fan to turn on when your humidity is too high and you don't want to be checking the humidity all the time. You can tell it if the humidity hits 70%, then you need to turn on this fan and it'll pull the humidity out. And
yeah, good example. But so they can make life easier. You can accomplish things you couldn't accomplish before. If you're in manufacturing, there's tons of possibilities with Internet of Things. But there's the flip side, which is if it's connected in such a way that it's it faces the internet, not just on a private network, but if it's facing the internet, then you've got to think about security with these devices. And most of these devices aren't as secure as your computer system is, for example, or they can't even be updated or upgraded in a way to be secure as threats change.
Correct.
So it's something to discuss with your IT department and security professionals if you're really going to start to utilize these tools. They're available. I think in some industries they are having a big impact, and I think everyone should be aware.
Yep.
So three different technology areas that I think for me are things that we all need to at least, go beyond just watching the news article or whatever.
And for us here, so our lights aren't going off and on. We have them segregated from our regular network.
Yes, we do.
So that way it might be able to access the internet when it needs to, but it's not going to have access to any of our stuff.
Yeah. So we run a separate network essentially to keep all these things away from all of our company information.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. A second trend is sustainability and green practices. Our modern world is impacting the natural world. It's pretty hard to say it's not.
Right.
Wherever you are in the spectrum of views on how much or how little we have an impact, it's hard to argue we have no impact, and we eventually will have a very negative impact. If it's not already here, it's going to come.
Right.
We all have a role, a place to play in that. We all have to be conscious of how we're affecting the environment. Things that we're doing, overtly or inadvertently, can have downstream effects. Just using electricity has a downstream effect. Washing something down the sink has a downstream effect. And I think all of us need to be aware of regulations that we need to start to be aware of or comply with, and practices that we need to change internally or be thinking about changing internally. Like I said, I'm not as familiar with that whole area, but I know it's an area I need to learn more about. And as a business, we need to learn more about so we can help our customers, deal with this.
Well, 14,001.
14,001, R2, other kinds of things that we've been involved with. But it'll grow more as time goes on. It'll become more front and center for everyone to have to be aware of. And I think we all want a healthy world to live in. So
and I'll just share two things with that. One, a lot of people that are the younger workers really do care about the environment.
Absolutely right.
Because they've seen the mismanagement of it to some degree in their lifetime. So it can help you attract better or a broader field of people when you're looking for an employee. Second, if you're a bigger business, you can have a greater impact. And I've actually seen hospitals, there's one in Spain that they're using hydrogen. So what they're doing is they're taking solar, that converts, that energy is then converted into hydrogen, which is used as a storage medium. When the hydrogen is turned back into electricity, they get a byproduct of air, which they actually use inside the hospital, oxygen.
That's awesome.
So, that's clearly a huge step. But, if you can do little things, maybe put solar on your, someplace.
On your office or wherever it is. Yeah, exactly right. And the other side of it is, what opportunities does this just create for your business? Is there an opportunity, a business opportunity or a savings opportunity? So it doesn't always have to be, we're just trying to avoid fines or something like this. But can we turn this around as a marketing benefit
and there are incentives,
exactly
from the government for businesses doing that as well.
And I think the third big trend for me in this area is, as we said earlier, the remote work issue. I mean, COVID kind of imposed remote work on most businesses, not every, but most businesses. It's hard for a restaurant to do it remotely, except they're delivering the food. So there's an example. But you still have to wait the table. You still have to wash the dish. You can't do that remotely. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID work patterns, at least not in the short term. Maybe some employers thought it was going to snap back to where it was. It's hard to make that change. People still are concerned about health. I think COVID has made everyone hyper aware of the risk of being in public places and that type of thing. And employers have been accommodating and probably need to continue to accommodate. Given all of that, what would it mean to your business if things don't go back to normal? And how do you then adjust your IT practices? Making sure everyone is working in a secure manner, has the equipment they need. If people are spread out in their homes, what does it mean from a management point of view, in terms of supervision, quality, or productivity? Now, in our business, it's a little bit. We're really fortunate because we work with professionals in every role, so we don't really count widgets or count time per se, but we still don't see each other all the time.
Right.
And how does that affect the way your business is managed and how you communicate, things like that? So that's another one of those big trends that I think is here to stay, like the others we've talked about. And I think it's important as anyone's thinking about the new year, is there something here that I need to be aware of? Maybe put an initiative in place to go learn more or to try to implement some new things or whatever it is.
I know one thing that we did, because we don't have quite as many people coming in the office all the time.
Yeah.
So we had some empty offices of people, at least. We converted those into shared space.
Yeah.
So you can say, hey, I'm coming in. So we get people to come in. Sometimes we have a lot of people coming in. So we're like, it's on a minimum, but we're still using that space. It's shared. People, they're welcome to come in if they want to.
Yeah.
So, but if you have a huge building, do you need to rent the whole building like you did before? So many things from remote work.
Yeah. Exactly right.
These are really, really interesting points on market trends. Let's pivot to customer needs. How have customer needs, their preferences or demands, how have they changed, and how can we adjust our offerings as a business to meet those needs?
Yeah, customer needs do change. Even in more mature markets, we're in a pretty mature market. ISO standards have been around a long time, but the needs change and customers' preferences change, and the way in which you service customers continues to change. Some of it's influenced by some of the technology stuff we talked about earlier. Other aspects of work from home means you don't go on site and meet with a customer if everybody's at home.
That's right.
There's no site to go meet with them at.
Right.
So you work remotely, in that regard. So we've had to adjust, the way we service our customers to some extent. But a couple of other things I think is worth mention. One is we'll call personalization.
Okay.
Meaning people want things the way they want things. And they want it to be tailored to their specific needs or their specific schedule or their specific requirements, more than I think ever. So while you as a business try to have very efficient processes, efficiently produce the same service or the same product, you got to realize that there's a customer at the end of that wants things their way. Sounds like a hamburger commercial a little bit there. But an old hamburger
now I'm
commercial.
Hungry.
Yeah, exactly. But, companies have to think about how do we tailor, adjust, or personalize products and services so that every customer gets what they need at the time they need it in the way they want to consume it or utilize it. And so, like in manufacturing, you're seeing more things like modular designs. So you could pull certain components out or put them in a few minutes or a quick moment, and then produce something in a more customized way. So your tooling or your processes change so that you can be more modular, more adaptable. I think that's an aspect of it. I think many industries, they're looking at 3D printing as a way of producing one unit in a way that meets a specific need in an efficient way, for that to be delivered. Boy, that whole field is changing very fast.
And what you can print with.
And print is a little bit hard to get your head wrapped around when we're used to print meaning this piece of paper.
And not skin.
And not skin. Exactly. Food. Yeah, the Star Trek replicator was probably 3D printing right there. Back in the day. But I think it's, those are just ways in which personalization has impacted industries, and technology is enabling people to be more picky when they consume or purchase from various companies or various sources. And those of us who are vendors
Yep.
need to be considering that, we can't just chunk out 2,000 parts and expect everyone's just going to be happy with those 2,000 parts in some industries.
Right.
You need to be able to tailor down to even sometimes an individual level.
Yep. Well, and to flip that on the ISO ear, you're supposed to be paying attention to your customers, taking their surveys and stuff to know what they want.
Yeah.
How can you better serve them? So if you're doing that, you might see that customization, and now you're going to have to make some adjustments.
And related to that, I think, is speed and convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of alluded to that a little bit a moment ago. Is not just how quickly can you ship your product, as always important. How can you shorten the throughput time or the cycle time in your operation so you can be more timely and responsive? But it's how quickly do you get back to customers with information?
Yeah.
How quickly do you have the right information on your website so it stays current? So it's not 3 weeks later you finally get a chance to make the update. Right. Meanwhile, people have seen old information. You know, how do you keep things current and internal processes that allow you to be more responsive to your customers' needs, make it more convenient for them, think about it from their point of view, allow them to place an order on their phone or whatever it happens to be, or through AI.
Right.
I don't know, maybe. The thing about speed and convenience and maybe personalization, if you're not going to deliver improvements in those areas, your competitors are probably going to do it.
I would think so, yes.
So whether it threatens to take business from you this year, maybe it won't this year, but it might next year. Some of these things take a while to actually deploy and implement. So maybe somewhere on your plan, you want to have something that's helping you meet your customers' needs in a new way. That's another thing to consider as you're putting your
or maybe put that on a survey now. Okay, this may or may not be something we need to look into. Let's gauge it.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's part of the planning process, another aspect to think about.
Yep. Well, it seems like tech, like you said here, has been moving very fast. People have changed their views on things. They want things more customized. Let's pivot to employee engagement. What strategies can a company implement to better engage and motivate employees for increased productivity and retention? We touched on them a little bit with in your planning and, get them focused on what helps them drive the company forward as well, personally.
Right.
What are some other ideas?
Well, yeah. And I think it's treating your employees as if they're customers, I think underlies everything I'm going to say.
I like that idea.
When I was starting in business, the owner of a company I worked for was a deacon in a church, very devout man. And he told me once that the way he thinks about his business is as if every employee is a volunteer at the church. And he's got to keep them engaged and motivated to spend time or donate their time, donate their energy, donate their money to a voluntary, organization as a church is. And you kind of have to win the hearts and minds in order to keep them interested, engaged, and ultimately to continue to support the church. Well, with employees, they really do volunteer their time. They choose to work for you. They choose to work at this company. They choose to not go somewhere else. It's not like people don't have options. Of course they do. It's not like people aren't, in demand. They absolutely are. Even when unemployment is high, there's still your talented people are in demand, and your competitors or other industries would love to have your employees working for them. So you've got to approach your employees, I think of it as if they're customers. My good friend from years ago would have said as if they're members of the congregation.
Right.
But people have choices, and you have to recognize it. So as an employer, how do you make this the best place that people have ever worked at? That's how I think about it. Well, where would I want to work? If I had to choose, this happens to be a company I own and I founded, but I want to work here too.
Yeah.
So how do you create that engaging environment that people want to be a part of and put their best work forward every day? So some things to think about in this day and age, flexible working arrangements. That's not always possible in every industry. If you have a production line and you need the whole line manned at a certain time to produce products, well, it's kind of hard to have flexible schedules unless you have overlapping schedules where people you might be able to have more flexibility in individual schedules, but at the same time service your manufacturing environment.
Right.
But you may have other situations where the time of day someone works at doesn't really matter that much. The day of the week they work doesn't really matter that much. Where they're working doesn't really matter that much. When those are, conditions of a particular job, then being flexible, why not? Why not make it more accommodating? Because people have a lot of demands on their time, especially if they're working from home.
Yeah.
Working remotely. There are a lot of additional responsibilities that come in on them. A delivery at the door. Yeah. They got to deal with that because they're home, or the dog needs to be put out, or you have kids at home, or, other kinds of things that need to take people's attention. Well, can you accommodate those things in the way you manage your company? In some cases, the answer is yes. In some cases, no. But you ought to think about, that's an area of give back that an employer could easily, accommodate.
Or maybe changing your focus too, and not just hours, but productivity.
Yeah, you could do that
because
too.
Some people, they might work a first shift job, or that's generally where they work, but they're creative at 10 at night.
Yeah.
So are you gaining their best productivity by using them in the hours that everybody else
So consider
work?
flexibility. Yeah. Is that something to think about this year? Continuous learning and development. Boy, everyone wants to stay on top of the latest in their industry or in their job.
Some of us have to.
Exactly right. So what are you doing as an employer to encourage that, to fund it, to reward people for doing that, give them the time and the opportunity to learn? That's a huge benefit that employees really appreciate. And as an employer, you get back, people who are better educated.
Yeah.
So how much of that is in your plans, for the year? And then recognition and reward. People need acknowledgement, and especially when people aren't working in the same building where you can walk by and say, "Hey, good job," or "Hey, everybody, look and see what X got done this time." Now you got to go out of your way to provide recognition sometimes.
And sometimes their job, even though it may be important and vital, might not be something people see.
Yeah.
Like you don't see, like I do podcast and video. Very easy for you to see what I do.
Yeah.
But somebody that's working on code every day, and it's a process that takes 6 months to get one thing done on a piece of software, and it's just this little upgrade, but it actually takes a lot of work.
How do you acknowledge what they did?
Exactly.
And at least show appreciation.
Yes.
For what they did. We work hard at making this a great place to work.
You do.
It takes all of us, Part of it is it's a priority for us. Part of it is we hire people who have similar values that we do as owners, and we fill this place with people of a like mind, I guess, in some regards. Part of that is we do show appreciation to one another. We create this to be the best place that you can work in. In fact, I have something to show. Drum roll.
Drum roll.
So we, last month, just were awarded one of the Pennsylvania Best Places to Work awards.
What was that number there?
Number 16.
16.
In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
That's
small business. We're completely proud of this recognition publicly. Of course, it'll be all over our website, and we'll be bragging about it. But to me, it just reflects we were only there because our employees said this is a great place to work.
Right.
It's very gratifying to see that as a benchmark, something we're going to do next year, because we're going to go for top 10 next year.
Yes. That's what you said.
To me, it's a way to keep us focused
So
on.
do I need to give you my list of what?
Give me your list, X. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready. I'm ready. But, what can you do in your plans this year to make, further steps in making your company to be a great place to work?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of those is ask your employees.
Yeah.
They probably know.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, these are really great things we've covered today. Clearly, you know what you're talking about, and you've put a lot of time and effort in thinking about these things over 15 years now?
24.
24. Okay, maybe I've only been here around 15.
Yeah.
No. 24 years, and it's great to see you sharing that with us today. I really do appreciate it. Any last points you might have on companies that are looking into the future, what their plans are for 2024?
Yeah, if you don't plan things, then you really have no way to focus where you're going to go. So using some kind of an annual planning process involving your staff in doing that, consider the external factors, internal factors, and then, take your best shot, monitor how you go through the year, stay engaged with your employees, and next year, do it again and reorient the ship and, continue on your destination. I think annual planning is important. It's the time of year when people think about that. Try not to make it just the latest New Year's resolution. At least I'm not very good at that.
Yeah.
But, make it a process that you go through, I'll say publicly, because it kind of holds you accountable to follow through. And if you do it every year, you kind of get into a routine, and people get used to the idea that each year we're going to try to, do better than we did last year.
Right. And it keeps them engaged.
Exactly right.
Buy-in.
Yep.
Well, this is great information, Scott. Always a pleasure to have you here. Really appreciate it. And, your insights are wonderful.
Appreciate it, X.
And we want to thank everyone here who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you and you have something you can take away from this. If you're looking for more information about us, Core Business Solutions, and how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, or even customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. And you can also visit our website where you can see our plaque for our award at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to do so. That way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day, everyone.